Here's a disturbing truth most people never realize. The smarter you become, the lonelier you get. And it's not paranoia, it's psychology. Society has feared deep thinkers, not because they were wrong, but because they saw what others refused to see. History doesn't lie. From Socrates forced to drink poison, to Galileo imprisoned for telling the truth, to Tesla who died forgotten. Brilliance has always come with exile. They weren't punished for ignorance. They were punished for clarity, because clarity is dangerous. It strips away illusions people depend on to feel safe. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "Intellect isolates a man. The higher it rises, the more lonely it becomes." He believed intelligence wasn't a blessing, but a curse. A curse that forces you to see through the comfortable lies most people to survive. But why? Why does society resist deep thinkers? Those who question, who analyze, who see differently? The answer lies deep within human psychology. Think about this. When you stand next to someone strong, you admire their power. When you meet someone rich, you may envy them, but you don't feel. Yet when you meet someone intellectually superior, something strange happens. You feel exposed, as if their very presence shines a light on everything you don't want to see in yourself. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just introduce new ideas. They become a mirror, reflecting the limitations of everyone around them. And people rarely forgive mirrors, because the truth they reflect isn't flattering. A deep thinker's silence alone can make others uneasy, not because of arrogance, but because their stillness reveals what others are trying to hide. So why does intelligence, more than wealth, status, or strength, provoke such deep discomfort? To understand that, you must first understand how the human mind defends itself against the one thing it fears most: the truth. Here's a paradox of human behavior. People admire strength, envy wealth, and worship beauty, but they intelligence. When someone is physically strong, we see them as protectors. When someone is rich, we aspire to be like them. When someone is beautiful, we celebrate them. These are forms of power, visible, measurable, safe. They don't threaten who we are inside. But intelligence is different. Intelligence cuts deeper, because it challenges not what we have, but unlike muscle or money, intelligence isn't something you can simply admire from afar. It forces you to look inward, to question your beliefs, your values, your entire worldview. And that's where discomfort begins. When you encounter someone who sees the world more deeply, someone who dissects what you take for granted, it doesn't just stimulate your mind. You start to feel exposed, as if their insight reveals cracks in your own understanding of reality. It's not arrogance that people resist in deep thinkers. It's the mirror they hold up. Psychologists have long observed this defense reaction. When someone's intelligence pierces your illusion of certainty, your ego panics. And panic always seeks comfort, not truth. That's why, throughout history, the most intelligent minds, from Socrates to Nietzsche, were not celebrated at first. They were exiled. Because they didn't just challenge ideas, they challenged egos. And the human ego will do anything to protect itself from discomfort, even destroy the one who reveals it. Think about your own life. Have you ever tried to share a deep or uncomfortable truth, only to be met with blank stares, nervous laughter, or silence? That wasn't rejection. It was defense. People will happily discuss gossip, trends, and trivial matters, but the moment conversation turns towards self-awareness or uncomfortable truths, watch how quickly they change the subject. It's not coincidence. It's a psychological shield, a barrier built to protect fragile identities from the one thing they cannot bear to face: reality itself. Here's a disturbing paradox about human behavior. People say they crave truth, but the moment they face it, their minds go into self-defense mode. When people encounter a deep thinker, their instinct isn't curiosity, it's resistance. Instead of engaging, they dismiss. Instead of listening, they avoid. This is why philosophers, intellectuals, and visionaries often live in quiet isolation. Not because they to be alone, but because society quietly exiles anyone who sees too deeply. It's not rejection, it's protection. The collective mind defending itself from discomfort. Ironically, research shows that in most social circles, people naturally trust those who sound certain, even if what they're saying is shallow. That's why charismatic talkers, populist leaders, and viral influencers often gain more influence than thinkers who speak with nuance or doubt. Society doesn't reward depth, it rewards simplicity and the illusion of certainty. Throughout history, the pattern never changes. Those who tell people what they to hear are celebrated. Those who tell people what they to hear are condemned. The masses don't want thinkers, they want comforters, voices that echo their beliefs, not question them. And so the paradox continues. The more a person seeks truth, the more disconnected they become from those who live without it. This is the dark cost of awareness that doesn't just reflect society's limitations. It exposes why society resists itself. But here's the haunting question. If intelligence truly threatens people, can science actually prove it? Modern neuroscience says yes. When a person feels intellectually inferior, the brain's fear center lights up the same way it would in the presence of physical danger. In other words, deep thinking isn't just to the average mind, and that's the greatest irony of all. The very thing that could elevate humanity is the same thing the human brain is wired to fear. Here's a shocking truth about human behavior. Your brain reacts to the same way it reacts to. When you meet someone who thinks too deeply, your nervous system doesn't see a teacher. It sees it's not just intimidation. But why does intelligence trigger the same fear circuits as standing face to face with a predator? The answer lies in evolution. For most of human history, survival didn't depend on being the smartest. It depended on being your ancestors didn't need to outthink the tribe. They needed to it. In the ancient world, rejection meant exile, and exile meant death. Alone, you had no protection, no shelter, no allies. So the human brain evolved with a brutal priority. That's why our minds are hardwired to crave approval more than truth. Social harmony meant safety, even if it meant silencing your own insight. Now, when someone highly intelligent walks into a room, their presence quietly disrupts that ancient order. They challenge beliefs, expose illusions, and disturb the fragile comfort of collective agreement. To the unconscious mind, that's not enlightenment. And the brain reacts the only way it knows how, as if it's facing an enemy. That's why deep thinkers often feel alienated. Not because they lack social skills, but because their very existence threatens the invisible laws of the tribe. Modern society may have evolved, but the brain's tribal software hasn't. We still value fitting in over standing out, and science proves it. In a 2021 study at Stanford University, researchers found something shocking. The reaction to deep thinkers depends entirely on context. In one-on-one conversations, people feel intrigued, even inspired. But in group settings, the threat response spikes. Because when surrounded by others, our tribal instincts resurface. The group doesn't see a mind seeking truth. It sees a disturbance in the social order. That's the tragedy of intelligence. In a world built on conformity, clarity becomes a crime, and deep thinkers become the silent exiles of modern society. Here's a disturbing psychological fact. The smarter you are, the more likely people are to turn against you, not because of what you say, but because of how you make them feel. In groups, logic doesn't rule, status does. People don't just react to intelligence itself. They react to how it makes them look in comparison. When someone feels outshined by a deep thinker, the mind slips into survival mode. Instead of learning from them, it tries to them, not to win the truth, but to protect pride. That's why deep thinkers thrive in one-on-one conversations, but suffocate in large groups. In private, truth is a conversation. In public, it's a psychologists have identified several mental traps that explain why society resists intelligence. The first is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Those who know little often believe they know more than they do, while those who know more doubt themselves. The result? The loudest voices are often the least informed, and the wisest minds are the most silent. Then comes the status quo bias. The human brain craves the comfort of the familiar. New ideas feel like danger. Intelligence by nature threatens stability, and the mind punishes anything that disrupts its peace. And finally, the backfire effect. When people are confronted with truths that challenge their beliefs, they don't change their minds. They double down, build walls, and reject the source of truth itself. This is why deep thinkers often face backlash, not admiration. Their words don't just challenge logic, they challenge. And in the digital age, this resistance has evolved into something darker. Social media doesn't reward intelligence. It. Algorithms prioritize emotion over insight, clicks over clarity, reaction over reflection. The more thoughtful your message, the less likely it is to spread. While the loudest, most simplified voices dominate the feed, truth quietly disappears beneath the noise. Take a look at the most viral content online. Catchy, simple, emotionally charged, and often misleading. Because deep ideas don't fit neatly into, they require attention, reflection, humility, three things modern society is slowly losing. And that's the cruel paradox of our time. The deeper your mind, the smaller your audience. Not because people can't understand you, but because their egos won't them. Here's a disturbing truth about the modern mind. We live in the age of information. Yet people have never been more resistant to society now rewards entertainment over enlightenment, noise over knowledge, distraction over depth. The result? Deep thinkers aren't ignored by accident. But this rejection of intelligence runs deeper than culture. It isn't just social, and our very nature resists truth when comfort feels safer. Humans evolved to survive, not to understand. And that primal wiring still rules the modern world. So, what does this mean for the deep thinker? The mind that sees further, questions deeper, and feels reality too sharply. It means the odds are stacked against you, because you are wired to challenge what most are wired to protect. But if society rejects intelligence, what exactly does it embrace? The answer is simple: comfort, a predictable world, a world where certainty is worth more than truth. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer saw this coming centuries ago. He called intelligence not a gift, but a curse. While others claimed wisdom brings success, Schopenhauer believed that true intelligence only leads to alienation. Because the smarter a person becomes, the harder it is for them to belong. But why? What makes awareness such a heavy burden? Schopenhauer's answer was terrifying in its simplicity. He believed all human life is driven by a blind, irrational force. A force he called the will. The will drives everything we do. Our hunger, our ambition, our desire for pleasure, power, and approval. It is the instinct to survive, not to understand. Most people live entirely enslaved to it. Their lives revolve around comfort, validation, and safety, the never-ending chase to feel good. But the deeply intelligent, the true thinkers, operate on a different kind of will, the will to truth. They are not satisfied with pleasure or illusion. They crave understanding even when that understanding destroys their peace. Ordinary people seek comfort and avoid pain. Deep thinkers seek truth, even when it hurts. And that's the paradox that defines them. The wiser you become, the harder it is to live among those who don't want to see. Because in a world built on escape, clarity feels like pain, and truth feels like loneliness. Here's a paradox few people ever realize. The more deeply you understand life, the harder it becomes to live it. Most people find meaning in relationships, entertainment, and routine pleasures. But to the deep thinker, these things often feel hollow. They're not fulfillment. They're distractions from deeper existential questions. Schopenhauer believed that the more a person understands human nature, the harder it becomes for them to connect with others. Because once you see the machinery behind human behavior, the lies, the vanity, the self-deception, it's almost impossible to unsee it. Most social interactions revolve around small talk, status games, and polite dishonesty. To the ordinary person, that's normal. To the deep thinker, it's unbearable. They crave depth in a world that rewards simplicity. They hunger for meaning in conversations where most are only seeking comfort. While the masses chase attention, approval, and distraction, the deep thinker quietly watches, feeling both enlightened and utterly alone. Because truth, once seen, becomes isolating. You can't laugh at what others find funny, and you can't pretend that illusions are real. Schopenhauer believed that human desire itself is an illusion, a cycle of craving and disappointment that traps most people in endless pursuit. Money, power, romance. These are the gods of ordinary men. But to the deeply intelligent, they are shadows. Temporary highs that fade once meaning is questioned. And so they withdraw, not out of arrogance, but out of exhaustion. They see too clearly to play along. This is why intelligent people often appear distant, indifferent, or detached. Their detachment isn't superiority. It's because their very presence forces others to confront truths they spend their lives avoiding. And most people would rather resent the mirror than face what it reflects. Schopenhauer compared intelligence to heightened awareness, a kind of vision that sees too much, a blessing that feels like a curse. He once wrote, "A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial." And his reasoning was simple. The more you understand, the less you can. Because once you see reality without its illusions, you no longer belong to those still dreaming. Here's a disturbing paradox about human nature. The smarter you become, the harder it gets to be happy. The more you see, the less you can ignore. The more aware you are of the world's flaws, the harder it becomes to find peace within it. And the deeper you think, the lonelier you feel. For Schopenhauer, happiness and intelligence weren't partners. He believed ignorance, not wisdom, was the true key to happiness. Because only those who can live without the constant weight of truth. History silently agrees. The most brilliant minds have also been the most tormented, haunted by the same thought. But Schopenhauer didn't stop at the diagnosis. He offered something far more valuable, a way to survive awareness without drowning in it. His first lesson, embrace solitude. He saw solitude not as punishment, but as a privilege reserved for the awake. While the crowd seeks distraction, the deep thinker should use their solitude as a weapon, a space to create, reflect, and evolve. Because when you stop chasing validation, your mind becomes your kingdom. His second lesson, find your own kind. Don't force yourself to fit into a world that rewards conformity over depth. Seek the few who think as you do, in books, in philosophy, in quiet conversations where truth still matters more than popularity. His third lesson, engage with the world wisely. Schopenhauer warned, never share your deepest insights with those who aren't ready to hear them. Truth, in the wrong ears, breeds resentment. Instead, observe humanity. Study its patterns. Speak with precision, and only when necessary. Master silence as much as speech. For modern deep thinkers, his philosophy remains a survival guide. Yes, intelligence may lead to loneliness, but that same loneliness also brings freedom. Freedom from illusions, freedom from dependence, freedom from the noise of a world addicted to lies. Schopenhauer saw intelligence as a double-edged sword, a gift that cuts both ways. It gives you clarity, but it also takes away comfort. It allows you to see reality, but it also isolates you from those who can't bear to. And in the end, his philosophy reveals what most secretly fear. Society doesn't fear the ignorant. It fears the aware. Here's a disturbing truth about human behavior. People don't fear intelligence. They fear what intelligence. Deep thinkers aren't rejected because they're wrong. They're rejected because they're... So if you've ever felt alone in your thoughts, understand this. You are not broken. You are simply seeing reality. But that realization comes with a price. The more clearly you see, the less clearly you fit in. So does this mean deep thinkers are doomed to isolation? Or is there a way to survive society without dimming your own light? The truth is harsh. Society isn't built to embrace deep thinkers. It's built to... Most people prefer comfort over clarity, repetition over reflection, certainty over truth. That's why shallow conversations, simple ideas, and predictable entertainment dominate the world. It's not an accident, it's biology. Human psychology was never designed for truth. It was designed for survival. Our brains crave what psychologists call cognitive ease, the comfort of simplicity. The mind prefers what's familiar because it's safe. When an idea is complex or unfamiliar, the brain interprets it as a threat. Your nervous system literally resists understanding. This is why the simplest ideas spread fastest, not because they're true, but because they feel true. Then comes system justification theory, the hidden force behind social conformity. People will defend broken systems rather than face the anxiety of rebuilding them. Even when the truth is obvious, they'll choose denial because change feels more dangerous than deceit. And finally, there's groupthink, the prison of the collective mind. People would rather belong to the herd than risk being right alone. This is why deep thinkers, philosophers, and visionaries have always lived on the edge of society. They see too much and speak too soon. It's not that their ideas are wrong. It's that their ideas arrive before the world is ready to face them. Even today, in the digital age, nothing has changed. Only the tools have. Look around. Who dominates the spotlight on social media? Not the thinkers, but the entertainers. Not those who seek truth, but those who can compress complexity into catchy, emotional sound bites that feel good. Because algorithms don't reward depth, they reward reaction. Controversy, outrage, humor, these rule the modern mind. And what gets lost in all this noise? Reason, reflection, reality. Echo chambers rise like digital fortresses, walls built from belief, where people only hear what confirms what they already think. And slowly, the mind forgets how to think at all. That is the tragedy of intelligence in the modern world. The deeper your thoughts, the quieter your voice becomes. Because truth doesn't trend, comfort does. Here's a disturbing paradox about our world. The very systems that claim to value intelligence are designed to suppress it. In this environment, deep thinkers, those who question, who see through illusion, who challenge the herd, are not celebrated. They are ignored, misunderstood, sometimes even attacked. This rejection of deep thought doesn't begin online. It begins in the places that shape our minds. Let's start with the first institution, education. Schools claim to value intelligence, but what they truly reward is obedience. Students who memorize, repeat, and comply are praised. Those who question, doubt, or disrupt, they're labeled as problems to be corrected. We teach children what to think, but rarely how to think. And so, generation after generation, the system rewards conformity and punishes curiosity. Then comes the corporate world, the adult classroom. Here, innovation is a slogan, not a reality. Companies don't promote the most intelligent minds. They promote the most compliant ones. Success isn't about creativity or insight. It's about fitting in, about protecting power, not challenging it. In politics, that's where the illusion becomes complete. Leaders who speak hard truths rarely win. Those who flatter the masses, who tell people what they want to hear, are crowned as heroes. This is why history's greatest minds were never understood in their own time. Their brilliance was treated as rebellion. Their truth was seen as society claims to value intelligence, innovation, and courage. But it celebrates genius only in hindsight, when the genius can no longer talk back. Galileo was imprisoned for revealing the truth about the stars. Van Gogh died in poverty, unappreciated. Tesla changed the world and died alone in a hotel room. Society does not fear stupidity. It fears the mind and that is why intelligence is not embraced in the moment, only remembered after it can no longer cause disruption. So what can deep thinkers do in a world that misunderstands their silence and resents their insight? If you've ever felt disconnected, if your thoughts isolate you, understand this: you are not an outcast. You are a continuation of a lineage of minds who were simply ahead of their time. Throughout history, every great thinker has walked the same lonely path, mocked, doubted, resisted, until the world finally caught up. From Socrates, forced to drink poison for speaking truth, to Galileo, condemned for seeing what others denied, to Tesla, forgotten in life and worshipped only in death. They all shared one curse and one gift: the ability to see reality before the rest of humanity was ready. And for that, they suffered for their wisdom. Because in a world built on illusion, truth will always sound like rebellion. Here's a disturbing truth about human history: the more someone reveals reality, the more society turns against them. The father of Western philosophy, Socrates, spent his life doing one dangerous thing: teaching people to think for themselves. He questioned tradition, challenged authority, and exposed the ignorance hidden beneath certainty. But instead of being celebrated for his wisdom, he was put on trial, accused of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. His real crime? Encouraging people to question what they were told. They offered him a way out, a chance to escape. But Socrates refused. Rather than betray his principles, he calmly drank the poison that ended his life. Before he died, he left behind a haunting truth: the unexamined life is not worth living. And his death sent a message that still echoes through time: society fears those who dare to think. Centuries later, Galileo faced the same fate. His only crime was discovering the truth. When he proved that the earth revolved around the sun, he shattered centuries of religious dogma. But truth is dangerous when power depends on ignorance. The church, terrified of losing control, branded him a heretic. Under threat of torture, Galileo was forced to deny the very discoveries that would later change the world. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest, his books banned, his ideas buried. And yet, the world now worships him as a genius, a man who dared to speak truth before truth was allowed. Galileo's story proves an eternal law of human nature. Even the most undeniable truth will be rejected if it threatens the system built on lies. Then came Nietzsche, the philosopher who stared directly into the abyss and refused to look away. He declared that traditional morality was built on weakness, that society preferred comforting illusions over the brutal honesty of existence. He taught that true strength comes not from following others, but from creating one's own values. But his ideas were too radical, too unsettling. He was labeled insane, his work dismissed, misunderstood, and feared. Yet today, his philosophy defines modern thought. His words shape psychology, literature, and existentialism. The very man once mocked as a madman now stands as one of history's deepest minds. His story, like Socrates and Galileo, proves one thing: Society does not reject deep thinkers because they are wrong. It rejects them because they are right too soon. Time eventually bends toward truth, but those who see it first are always the ones who suffer for it. Here's a disturbing truth about human nature. The world doesn't destroy its geniuses with hate. It destroys them with indifference. History remembers their brilliance, but forgets the suffering it inflicted upon them. Take Nikola Tesla, a man who dreamed of giving the world free energy. He envisioned wireless electricity, technology that could have revolutionized civilization. But his ideas threatened those in power. Industrial giants like Thomas Edison and J.P. Morgan didn't see innovation, they saw risk. Tesla's vision of limitless energy would have made their empires obsolete. And so, they buried his ideas, and buried his legacy with them. Despite his brilliance, Tesla died alone in a dim New York hotel room, forgotten, broke, while others built fortunes on his stolen inventions. Then there was Alan Turing, the man who cracked Nazi codes during World War II, helping end one of humanity's darkest chapters. His mind saved millions of lives. His theories in computing became the foundation of modern artificial intelligence. But instead of being honored, he was condemned, not for his intellect, but for his identity. In 1952, the British government chemically castrated him for being gay. 2 years later, at just 41, Alan Turing took his own life. Today, he's hailed as a hero, but back then, he was discarded like a threat. Society celebrated his machines, but destroyed the man who built them. And centuries before them, there was Hypatia of Alexandria, a woman, in an age that barely allowed women to think. She was a philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer who taught logic and reason in a world ruled by superstition. Her brilliance challenged the religious order of ancient Rome, and for that, she paid the ultimate price. In 415 AD, a mob of religious extremists dragged her through the streets and brutally murdered her, not for her sins, but for her. Her death became a symbol, a reminder that every step toward enlightenment is met with violent resistance. From Tesla to Turing, from Hypatia to Socrates, every visionary shares the same fate. They saw too far. They spoke too soon. Their ideas were mocked, rejected, or erased while they lived, and only once they were gone. Because society doesn't truly fear intelligence. It fears what intelligence? Change threatens comfort. Change exposes corruption. Change destroys control. So ask yourself, if history has always punished deep thinkers, what happens when become one? Will you silence your mind to fit in? Or will you dare to think, knowing that the truth always comes with a price? Here's a paradox most people never realize. The deeper your mind goes, the smaller your circle becomes. If this video resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced rejection for thinking deeply? Let's start a conversation, and if you want to explore more insights from history's greatest minds, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.